Mr. Mayor.
Well, that's what I'm going to call him today.
All right. You've got your own thing. You have a fraternity that I do not belong to.
That's right. You have to earn that title, but
I've only run for one elected office, and I was unopposed. And
you still lost? Sorry.
Well, I would have called you Mr. Trustee.
That's right. Library board trustee.
Well, I would have called you Mr. Trustee.
Thank you. Maybe you still can someday.
It's too bad we didn't have just a couple of guys around. I could have interviewed you as Mr. Trustee.
And how I always said no to the wasteful spending of money.
That you are able to point out on a regular basis.
Do not be alarmed. It's just a couple of guys. Who are these guys? Ray Regina, beloved former mayor of St. Charles, lifetime educator, and Pat Crimmins, a Geneva lawyer, but he's actually okay. From Elgin to Aurora, from Naperville to Elburn, these guys are gonna talk everything. So, here's Pat and Ray.
Hello, friends, and welcome to an Election Illinois edition of Just a Couple of Guys with your host, Pat Crimmins, and yours truly, Ray Regina. We are pleased today to talk to the two leading candidates for the Republican nomination for governor of Illinois, Senator Darren Bailey of Xenia and Mayor Richard Irvin of the city of Aurora. After a few words from our sponsors, Pat and I will engage both the senator and Mr. Mayor. We will be right back.
At McNally Heating and Cooling, we understand that customer satisfaction starts with arriving at your home on time. Your service technician will apply the same attention to detail and quality workmanship to every job, large or small. We offer upfront, honest pricing, and we'll make sure the job gets done right from start to finish. From furnace and air conditioning service, minor repairs, or total equipment replacement, we do it all. Give us a call or find us online and let the luck of the Irish work for you.
Hello, friends. This is Ray Regina. I'd like to say a few words about my friends at the Karis Group of Restaurants, one of our sponsors. I've been a frequent guest at all of their fine restaurants for years, one of which is Rookies, which has locations throughout the Fox Valley and beyond. My favorite dish at Rookies is the gyros plate with the Saganaki appetizer. Oopa! My wife, she loves the Hall of Fame chicken sandwich, but I can honestly say that I've never had a bad meal there, regardless of whatever I've had to eat. The wings are out of this world. The salads are delicious. Great burgers, tacos, all American specialties, and don't forget their pizza. And of course, you can wash this all down with one of their famous Mai Tais. Try them out. St. Charles, Geneva, Elgin, Hoffman Estates, Huntley, and Roselle. Rookiespub.com. I'll see you there.
All right, we're back, and we're here with Mayor Richard Irvin, the mayor of the city of Aurora, who's running for the Republican nomination for governor. And Richard, we appreciate you being here. We understand that you're busy. There's 6 days, I guess, until the primary. The polls seem to indicate that the race is really between you and Senator Bailey. Can you do us a small favor, and for the people who don't know you necessarily, compare yourself to Senator Bailey in terms of why you feel you're qualified for the position of governor, and why you're more qualified than Senator Bailey?
Absolutely. I'd be happy to. First of all, thanks for having me on. I really appreciate the opportunity to speak with you and your listeners and just talk about the future of the state of Illinois. Let me give you a little bit of my background in history. I'm a combat veteran that served our country in the first Gulf War in both Desert Shield and Desert Storm. I'm a former prosecutor who personally put violent criminals behind bars and, kept our community safe and improved quality of life in neighborhoods just like the one I grew up in, low-income housing, being raised by a single teenage mom, in that type of environment, and I am the mayor of the second largest city in the state of Illinois with a proven track record of reducing crime by supporting our men and women of law enforcement, and expanding our police department. We have more police officers on our force now than in the history of our city. We also reduce property taxes every single year that I've been mayor. Every single year we've reduced property taxes. And we did that by expanding our economy, growing our city, attracting new businesses, attracting new residents, and getting things done. I've brought excitement back to the city of Aurora, energy back to the city of Aurora. We brought pride back to Aurora. That was one time looked at as one of the most violent cities in the state of Illinois per capita, with over 30 murders a year. Now we're one of the safest cities in the country, the sixth safest large city in America, according to Wallet Hub. I have a record and a track record and a background of success. And, I will put my record up against anyone's record. Now, I'll tell you this, any Republican on the Republican side would do better than J.B. Pritzker. But we need somebody that's actually be able to beat J.B. Pritzker. So when I compare myself and my background and record to Darren Bailey, it's the fact that I have a background and a record being the executive of a large organization like the city of Aurora, the second largest city in the state. He does not have that background. He was a legislator, and all he did was voted on things. Matter of fact, I don't think the whole time he was there, the 2 years in the Senate, that he actually put forward any serious or a legitimate legislation. And I know how to govern. I actually know how to lead. And if I tell you what I'm going to do, you don't have to take my word for it. All you got to do is look at my record, look at my background, look at my history. It'll show that I am an executive and I know how to lead an organization, to where we need it to be successful. Darren Bailey does not have that.
Well, you kind of answered my second question, if I may, Mr. Mayor, and that was you feel as though being mayor was an advantage that Senator Bailey does not have. What about the idea that you haven't worked in Springfield? Do you find that to be a great disadvantage?
Well, that's actually incorrect. I have. As mayor of the city of Aurora, it was incumbent upon me to work in Springfield constantly. I had to work in Springfield with the leadership there to bring resources back to the city of Aurora. So I was constantly in Springfield, making sure that they did the right thing on behalf of my city, the second largest city in the state. And oftentimes I was in Springfield lobbying and advocating on behalf of issues that affected the entire state, making sure that they pushed efforts and legislation forward that affected us. So I have been. And one of the other things that I did and thought it was important in my campaign was to have a running mate in Avery Bourne, Representative Avery Bourne, who actually is one of the most senior representatives in Springfield right now on many leadership committees. She's been there much longer than Darren Bailey's been there. I think, 3 times as long as Darren Bailey has been there, and understands the inner workings of Springfield and how she and I, working as a team, will address the issues, and not just for us, the governor, lieutenant governor, but we're going to be working, for Republicans up and down the ballot, in districts throughout this state to make sure we can get rid of that super majority in the Democratic Party. And if you have a Republican governor and a Republican legislature that's not in a super minority, we can finally push forward policy and plans to finally make a difference and change in this state. Look, we've got to rise up as residents of Illinois. We've got to take our state back. We've got to bring pride back to the state of Illinois and return this to true land of Lincoln again. And this Irvin Bourne team is absolutely poised to do exactly that.
The idea of running for statewide office is not for the faint of heart. You did that, and you've faced your fair share of negative ads. What do you think about what's been kind of thrown at you in terms of negative ads and your response to those?
Listen, J.B. Pritzker has spent $35 million, a Democrat, in a Republican primary against me. Every time you turn on the television, you see ads on, and you don't see anybody but J.B. Pritzker attacking me. Everybody's attacking me. So you got to wonder, why are they only attacking Richard? There's 6 people running in the Republican primary, but I'm the only one they're attacking. J.B. Pritzker is forecasting exactly who he believes is his biggest threat, who he believes will give him the biggest challenge and actually beat him in November. And that's Richard Irvin and the Irvin-born team. He's telling us exactly who, he fears most, who his worst nightmare is by the $35 million he's spending, tearing me down, and spending a certain amount of money lifting Darren Bailey up, because he wants Darren Bailey to be that person that goes into the general and he challenges in November, because he knows he can beat Darren Bailey easily. Let's be clear. A vote for Darren Bailey is a vote to reelect J.B. Pritzker. As simple as that. J.B. Pritzker's telling you that. He's telling you, I want Darren Bailey with me in the general because I know I can beat him. I don't want Richard Irvin because he will beat me. Because to be governor of the state of Illinois, you've got to get 3 categories of voters. You've got to get Republicans, you've got to get independents, and you've got to get Democratic crossover to win out of Chicago. And I'm going to be the only candidate that'll be able to do that based on my relationships and working across the aisle and effectively getting things done. Darren Bailey will not be able to do that. And Pritzker knows it. Matter of fact, Darren Bailey's already said that Chicago is a hellhole, and he's doubled down on it. He said it a number of times, and even said that Chicago should be succeeded from the state. Now, that's a silly thing to say. And especially when to win governor, you need 20 to 25% of the folks out of Chicago voting for you. So,
right.
This is the team. The Irvin-born team is a team that's going to actually beat J.B. Pritzker. The purpose of a primary isn't simply to vote for the guy that you like the best. The purpose of the primary is vote for the guy that, stands up for your principles and stands up for your conservative ideas and can beat J.B. Pritzker, the Democrat. Because nothing we talk about in the Republican Party, lower government, less government, lower taxes, support for our men and women of law enforcement, all those things that J.B. Pritzker is against because he raises taxes. He could care less about our law enforcement. He could care less about a safe community because he handcuffs the police, their ability to do their job. All those things that the Republicans care about, none of it matters if J.B. Pritzker is reelected. And he's telling you who he thinks is his worst nightmare, and that's me.
All right, Ray?
Mr. Mayor, switching gears here and perhaps a mayor-to-mayor question here. My last year as mayor of St. Charles was your last year in your first term, and we both dealt with the pandemic. And my question to you is pretty simple. How would you have handled the pandemic differently than J.B. Pritzker? Well,
as you know, Mayor Regina, former mayor of St. Charles, that we served together while I was the mayor of Aurora and you were the mayor of St. Charles, that a governor is effective when he communicates with the leaders throughout the state and makes decisions that affect our municipalities positively. You and I both know that Pritzker did not do that. He made executive orders without conferring with the leaders of the state of Illinois, leaders even in his own legislature in Springfield, and made decisions that affected our economy, that affected our families, that affected our communities. And he didn't even talk to us. When you decide to shut down a state and shut down a whole, hospitality industry without conferring with the hospitality leadership, and talking about how we're going to recover after COVID's over, which he did not, that destroys our economy, not just the restaurant owners, but those employees, the employees' families that had to pay mortgages on their homes and had to pay car notes, and he also, did the school closures, which affected our kids and their abilities to learn. Oh my gosh. And then, it didn't give parents a voice and rights in their kids' ability to be educated effectively during this pandemic. He ruined our state. And if he stays as governor, we will continue to spiral into chaos, spiral into criminality, spiral into high taxes, and spiral into a state that no one wants to live in. I would have done it differently in the sense that I would have brought our stakeholders to the table. I would have made sure all the leaders and all the mayors of the cities around the state were directly involved in the decisions we made and work together so we could all keep each other safe. There is a better way if we would just work together as leaders to keep all of our residents safe, from infecting each other.
Question on that, and that would be simply, it was a supermajority Democratic state house. Would you concede that the state house was pretty much absent during all of this?
They were absolutely absent, and most of it because J.B. Pritzker didn't even try to include the leadership. But even if he had, they were absent. They didn't make any decisions that would safeguard the lives of the residents of the state of Illinois, safeguard our livelihoods, safeguard our businesses, safeguard our educational institutions, our schools. Matter of fact, they threatened many of our schools and said, if you stay open, we're going to take your charter from you and we're not going to let your kids graduate, and get the benefit of the education they got. They actually made threats like that. The Pritzker administration did. That's not an administration that works on behalf of the people. That's an administration that works on behalf of politicians and one man making decisions that affect everyone's life. And we cannot allow that to continue.
I just follow up on that, if I could, Mr. Mayor. What would you recommend we do? I don't know how it comes down, COVID-20 or the next pandemic. Where's the legislation, or what legislation would you recommend to avoid these problems in the future?
Well, I would recommend that we don't ever give the governor that type of authority where he'd do executive orders that last for a year. If there's an emergency circumstance, it should be 30 to 90 days max. And then after that, the legislature should directly be involved, and the rest of the leaders throughout the state to make the determination of how we go forward as a state. He continues to sign executive orders, and I think he just signed one recently to continue to extend some of the executive orders of COVID without including anyone. He makes these decisions on his own as though he's an emperor and not the governor. The governor of the state is supposed to be here and represent the people that elected him to the office, represent the interest of the people of the state of Illinois. He hasn't done that. And because of it, he does not deserve to be the governor and the leader of the state of Illinois. He doesn't deserve to continue in office, and we need to change him. And this team, the Irvin-born team, is the only team that's going to be able to beat him. And how do you know? Because J.B. Pritzker is telling you that by spending $35 million against me to make sure that I don't face him in the general election. Well, I think it's only fair that he and I stand on the stage together and we talk about what we need to do to take Illinois to the next level. We talk about how he negatively affected Aurora and St. Charles and Geneva and all the cities in Kane County and in the Fox Valley. We need to talk about that and how he had no plan for recovery at all, other than to get on television and tell us what we needed to do when he didn't follow those same rules and mandates. So, we've got to take a different direction. We've got to take our state back.
All right, Mr. Mayor, moving on. If you could maybe articulate for us maybe 3 or 4 of your highest priorities in your Irvin administration from Springfield, what are the 3 or 4 things that you see that you must get done? Well,
first of all, we've got to claw back some of the most dangerous parts of what Pritzker calls the Safety Act. That's that act that he signed into legislation that gives criminals more rights than the victims of the crimes and then the police that keep us safe. Matter of fact, the most dangerous part is going to affect January of 2023, where where people that commit felonies no longer have to post bond, and all the ones that are in jail now will just be purged back out into the community, just set free back out into our neighborhoods. So we've got to support our police officers and law enforcement. We've got to bring law and order back to the state. That's the first thing. Law and order back to the state.
Let me stop you there, Mr. Mayor. We had Senator Bailey on before you, and he indicated that he would seek the repeal of the Safety Act. You say here today you want it clawed back.
No, that's where Darren Bailey has no idea how government runs, even though he was in Springfield himself. Yeah, you can't. A governor is not going to be able to seek repeal without the legislature on board with it. So one of the things that we're doing on the Irvin-born team is making sure that we get rid of the supermajority out of the Democratic Party and support Republicans up and down the ballot so it can be repealed. If we can flip the House to a Republican majority, which I'm not saying we're going to be able to because we need 15 seats to get there. If we can flip it to a Republican majority, then yes, we can repeal it. But if the Democrats still have majority, even if we take away supermajority, if they have a majority, we still have to work across the aisle. And if they're in control still, even with the majority, not supermajority, but the majority, we've got to work with them to address the issues. Then we can seek repeal all we want. But if they're in the majority, it's not going to happen. We got to claw back the most serious parts of it and working across the aisle with them. But if we can flip the House, we can repeal the whole thing.
Right. So I interrupted you. You started with the Safety Act. What are the other
crimes?
3 or 4?
So the other things that we have to address is education. We've got to give our parents their voice and their rights back in their own kids' education for the future. Period. We have to. without that, it's bleak. Our kids' future are bleak. Third, we've got to do strong economic development and grow our economy. We have to grow our economy. So it's my job to reach out to corporations. It's my goal to reach out to corporations throughout this country, throughout this world, tell them who we are in the state of Illinois, the sixth largest state in the union, used to be the fifth, but we keep losing population. Tell them who we are and bring track economic development and put in areas that we need it most. And fourth, what we need to do is make sure that we change the heads of all these agencies that have failed us. For example, DCFS, who's the executive director of DCFS, has been held in contempt for pretty much neglecting children. He's held in contempt 11 times for neglecting children, and not providing the services that they're supposed to. Our Board of Education, which, disregards our kids and the parents' voice. Our Illinois Department of Veteran Affairs that allowed our heroes to die over during COVID-19 without addressing any issues. And I can go on and on with department heads across the state that have been failing us. We've got to do that, and it's important. I'll throw in a fifth that's important. And I don't know if many people know this. About 3 weeks ago, a parental notification expired. That means right now, a teenager, 13, 14, 15, can go and get an abortion without their parents being notified. A kid can't get an aspirin in high school without their parent being notified, and most time given consent. But J.B. Pritzker thought it was acceptable to sign legislation to allow a kid to go get a serious medical procedure without their parent even being notified. That's atrocious, and that's something we should reinstate immediately.
Mr. Mayor, you mentioned education, and I'm a former educator, and I'm well aware of the fact that the state constitution gives the state, or designates that the state should be the primary funder of education. I saw the comment you made recently at a press conference that you supported that. You're a public school, you were raised as a public school student. I taught in the public schools, and we both agree that would certainly take the load off of property taxes if that were to happen.
Absolutely.
The question is pretty simple, though. How is that done in a budget that we have in Illinois without putting severe pressure on other programs if we were to accomplish something like that?
We spend close to, I think it's $14,000 per student a year for education here in the state of Illinois. But then we have other states like, say, Florida, that only spend, $8,000 to $9,000 dollars per year, but those kids for some reason still get a great education. As a matter of fact, I sent my son, once he got to high school, to Marmion Academy. Many people know Marmion. It's a military academy, Catholic school here in the Fox Valley area. It cost me $12,000 per year to send him there. It cost a kid in Chicago, $3,000 more to get educated, and he gets a third of the education that my son got. So then we got to start wondering, all right, we're spending all this money on education. Why aren't our kids being able to compete on a global level? Why aren't they getting the education they need, especially in places like, CPS, Chicago Public School Districts? It's because we aren't spending the money appropriately. We aren't doing what's necessary. And we're not, even though I recognize that public school education is extremely important and the state funding that is important. If these schools aren't stepping up, we've got to allow competition. We've got to allow, other schools to step up and say, listen, if you're not educating these kids correctly, give us your share, give us their share of the money, and let's take it to a school that is going to be able to address those issues. We got to have some type of competition. Go ahead.
I was going to say, you walk me right into my next question, because it sounds like you might support the concept of vouchers. I see the Supreme Court just yesterday ruled on such an issue in the state of Maine.
Right.
And so would you be for some sort of?
Yes, I would absolutely be for some sort.
Vouchers. I'll just use it that way. Most people know what vouchers are.
Yeah,
like giving money to private schools.
Yeah,
from tax dollars.
I would absolutely be in support of that. Let me tell you why. What it does is create competition. Now we've got some great school districts. Matter of fact, in the city of Aurora, we've got 6 different school districts, and some of them are some of the best performing school districts, public school districts in the state of Illinois. For example, District 204, Indian Prairie School District, one of the highest ranked school districts in our entire state, and that's great. But then we have school districts in like Chicago Public Schools where kids are reading 2 to 3 grades under their grade level That's atrocious. How are we preparing our kids for the future if we're not ensuring that they have appropriate education? So if a parent is in a school that's not performing, then that parent should be able to take their portion of the tax dollars that paid in that school and go to a school that will provide their kids the education needed. And that would make these school districts compete better. That would make our public schools step up and say, if we want to keep these kids and make sure we maintain the money we need to run our schools, we've got to perform at a much higher level. It gives them incentives. It forces them to compete. And that's what we do, in America here. We compete and we make things better. When there's no competition and we just allow things to continue on as they are, as though it'll change by itself without any intervention. Well, I think that's wrong. To do something over and over again, expect a different result, we all know is the definition of insanity.
You mentioned abortion a little while ago, and I respect deeply the choice you made not to comment on a pending decision, but we do expect the challenge to Roe v. Wade to be handed down this week or next. And while I'm not going to ask anything about that decision per se, I would like to pose a hypothetical and see if you'll respond to if in fact there's modification to Roe in that decision. What do you think the impact would be on larger cities in this area like Aurora, Elgin, Naperville?
Well, again, that's a hypothetical, and it's hard for me to talk about to give an answer on a hypothetical when we don't have the final decision. But I'll say this, in Illinois, most of the issues surrounding abortion have been codified, and again, it matters. What determines how we move in the future is what the makeup of the legislature is going to be. But what I'm hearing as I drive around this state and talk to residents is they're most upset about the fact that a teenager, 13, 14, 15, can go into an abortion clinic and get an abortion without their parent being notified. I mean, that's atrocious. That's terrible. A kid, as I said, a kid can't get an aspirin in high school without their parent being notified, but you can get an abortion, and these are things that are extreme, where J.B. Pritzker has gone to the extreme. Matter of fact, since the leaked draft of the Supreme Court decision came out, that's not the final decision, he's been going around the country talking about, making, Illinois, abortion capital of the country. And again, he's using this important issue that has been debated for decades, as political fodder. And I think that's absolutely incorrect. We all know that he's setting himself up to run for president, which is why he's trying to make sure that I don't beat him in November and he lifts up somebody else that he can beat easily, to set himself up to run for president. I think that's wrong. We got to focus on the problems we have right here in Illinois. And the problems we have is that under J.B. Pritzker, crime is out of control. Taxes and wasteful spending is out of control. Corruption is out of control. And we've got to take a different direction. We've got to rise up as residents of the state. We've got to take our state back and put us in the right direction.
We'll go back to Pat for the wrap up.
Mr. Mayor, just a few more questions, if I could. First off, just so I'm clear, do you believe that J.B. Pritzker can easily beat Senator Bailey?
Absolutely. To be governor of the state of Illinois, for a Republican to win in Illinois, you need Republican votes, you need independent votes, and you need Democratic votes, and you need a certain percentage, at least 20 to 25% of those votes out of the city of Chicago. If you cannot win 20 to 20% of the votes, Democratic votes, out of the city of Chicago, you cannot win the governor's race. We've seen it time and time again, where a Republican will win all the red areas, all the red counties throughout the state, and then a Democrat, will win Cook County and one other Democratic county, Winnebago or something like that, and win the whole election. How can that be? We've seen it with Blagojevich. We've seen it with Pritzker. We've seen it time with Quinn. We've seen it time and time. We've seen it time and time again. So,
Mr. Mayor, sorry to interrupt, but if you were not to carry the day on Tuesday and Senator Bailey were to win the nomination, you would see yourself supporting him and working for him?
We've been the only team that signed a unity pledge saying that what's important is Republicans come back together and take out J.B. Pritzker. But the only person that's going to take out J.B. Pritzker is the Irvin-born team and Richard Irvin. That's the only person, because
I understand.
J.B. Pritzker he's telling you that. Unity pledge is saying that once it's all over, once the primary is over, the Republicans will all come together and fight to take out the Democrat.
All right. The issue that I wanted to talk about last, I think, we'll let you give the voters here a final pitch, but we talked about it a little bit, and that's crime, and the perception, I'm a former prosecutor myself, the perception is that crime is out of control, and that's Cook County. We had Bob Berlin on here. He talked a little bit about what's going on in DuPage County. The Kane County, the numbers are up. The perception is that crime is out of control. So what would you do? What have you done as mayor to try and curb this crime spree?
That's not actually a perception. That's a reality. There, last year in Cook County, 1,000 people were killed. That's the most ever in, a quarter of a century. And put that in perspective, in Chicago, 800 people, of those out of Cook County, 800 were killed in Chicago. Put that in perspective. New York, which is 3 times the size of Chicago, only 500 people killed. LA, which is 1 million more people than Chicago, only 400 people killed. So we've got a crime problem. When a kid in the Millennium Park gets shot in front of the Bean, another kid walking down the street with his cell phone in his hand gets mugged, and he won't give his cell phone and code to the mugger, so he shoots him 3 times in the face. That's a reality, And a 71-year-old woman walking down the street enjoying the spring night air gets mowed down a drive-by shooting on the north side in a very nice neighborhood. We have the folks that can afford it that are hiring their own security to police and protect their neighborhoods. See, this is a reality in our community. I'm the best person, to tackle this based on my background and history. I'm a former prosecutor who personally put violent criminals behind bars. I'm the mayor of the second largest city, Aurora was one of the most violent cities per capita with, over in Illinois, with over 30 murders a year. Now we're the 6th safest large city in America, according to Wallet Hub. I'm the person that's going to be able to tackle this head on based on the practices that I've already put in place in the city of Aurora, and that I've been practicing ever since I was a young prosecutor back in the days working with the police. That's why. That's exactly why I've gotten the endorsement of so many police agencies. Illinois FOP Labor Council, they've endorsed me. Chicago FOP has endorsed me. The governor's own police agency, the Illinois State Police Troopers, have endorsed me, as well as 20 sheriffs in 20 different counties throughout the state of Illinois. They've endorsed me because they know I'm the person that will step up and return law and order to the state and make a difference and get rid of this crime that's plaguing us and making us spiral into lawlessness.
Well, just to follow up, Mr. Mayor, the question had a kind of a multiple part aspect to it. What did you do outside of increase the numbers of police officers? What did you do in Aurora?
All right. Well, let me tell you exactly what we did in Aurora. We implemented, what's called the weed and seed, weeding out crime and blight, and seeding in opportunity and seeding in success. So let me tell you how we did it. Not only did we hire more police officers, because the minute I became mayor, we put more police officers on the force. We raised the budget of the police department, and crime went down. As simple as that, But we didn't stop there. We've got more police officers on our force now than the history of our city. But we didn't stop there. We implemented what we call the 3 C's: children, cops, community. These 3 C's is a formula that you can use in any municipality, any city throughout the state of Illinois, and it will work. The 3 C's are: the first C is children. Most of the crime that's being committed by young people. Kids for the most part, teenagers, young adults. So what we have to do is make sure we get programs, these kids in successful programs off the street, into those programs, into school, into sports, into things that make them success. It's got to be a concerted effort to help our young people to make a better choice and not take the choice of joining the gangs. That's the first C, children. And I can go into detail of different kind of programs that we set up in Aurora, which help. But that's the first C, children. Get them off the street and into successful programs and back in school. The second C is cops. And when I say cops, I'm talking about community-oriented police officers. We need to return to the beat cop. And when I say that, we need police officers in our neighborhoods, from our neighborhoods, that are proactive instead of reactive, not just riding around their black and white like a paramilitary force waiting for something to happen, but in the community, getting to know the community members, being proactive instead of reactive in addressing crime, identifying who the bad actors are and who the good people are, and working with the good people to actually shut the bad actors down. That's the second C, cops. So children, cops. The last one is community. I don't care how many people you arrest. If you don't empower the community to take back, their neighborhoods, crime is always going to return. We've got to create block clubs, walk clubs, community groups, all these groups to get the neighbors And I don't care if they're planting flowers on the street corner, just as long as they come together and address the issues collectively together, along with the police in their community. So children, cops, community, implement that, and you add economic development and jobs and economic progress. I'm telling you, it will turn a city around. It turned Aurora around. It could turn Chicago around. It could turn Peoria around or Rockford around. If you implement that philosophy and that formula, we will have success throughout the state of Illinois.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And I wanted to give you a chance just to summarize and give a voter who's on his way to the voting booth a final pitch. Why Mayor Irvin as opposed to somebody else?
Listen, my life has been about service. You know, when I started out 18 years old, joining the United States Army, serving our country in time of war, whether it's been a prosecutor putting criminals behind bars and working with our police to keep our community safe, whether it's been an alderman of the city, you know, working in the neighborhoods with people to address issues head on, or whether it's been the mayor of the second largest city of the state, reducing crime, reducing property taxes, you know, attracting new business, attracting new residents, bringing pride back to Aurora. That's what we need for the state of Illinois. We've got to bring pride back to Illinois and return this to true land of Lincoln again. Now, people ask, you know, why should I vote for you? Well, J.B. Pritzker's telling you, because he's telling you I'm his worst nightmare. I'm the one that's going to be able to take him out. He wouldn't be spending $35 million against me if he thought it was easy for him to beat me. So a vote for me, a vote for Richard Irvin is a vote to beat J.B. Pritzker. A vote for Darren Bailey is a vote to reelect J.B. Pritzker. He's telling you that. I'm not telling you. That's what J.B. Pritzker's telling you.
All right, Mr. Mayor, we want to thank you again for your time. We understand it's a busy time. We appreciate you spending time with us, and I know the listeners will as well, as they work their way to the polls and make that decision that's so important for all of us. Ray and I will be back after a word from our sponsors.
Hey there! Are you looking for real estate in the Fox Valley area? Well, check this out. Amy Nelson. She's been listing and selling real estate in the Fox Valley and Chicagoland area for over 20 years. She's been a 5-star professional award winner for the last 11 years in a row and was recognized as a 5-star legend in Forbes magazine. And now, Amy's proud to announce that she's joining with the Sarah Leonard team with RE/MAX Suburban, the same team that was number 1 in closed transactions in Illinois and the number 1 real estate team in Kane County. Do I need to say more? Give her a call.
Hi, my name is Amy Nelson. Please give me a call at 630-542-8848 or email me at amy@sarahleonardsells.com for a free listing evaluation and for all of your residential real estate needs.
Billy and Lauren here with the Diamond Air in St. Charles.
Making one-of-a-kind engagement rings. So, Billy, what have we learned this past year?
Well, Lauren, I think what we've learned is what really matters in this life. I just hope that we can capture a small glimpse of it here at the Diamond Air.
Billy, so now the guy who says size does matter needs the world's tiniest violin?
Maybe.
Come on. The Diamond Air is where people come to have a drink and look at colorless diamonds. Where's your enthusiasm?
Well, you know, Lauren, they say having kids lowers testosterone.
That's okay. Athletes everywhere are using enhancements, right?
Yeah.
Hey, I know. Why don't we come up with an inspiring ring enhancement for all those loose diamonds?
Yeah, I suppose making the perfect engagement ring would make the world a better place to relish those most tender of moments.
Billy, trade in that violin.
Okay, how's this? With the Diamond Air, you will get a larger, better quality diamond for less because remember, gentlemen, size does matter.
We are back with a few post-interview comments, and Pat, a very intriguing and interesting interview. He didn't come up for air, if you will. He talked quite a bit, and it went the full 25 to 30 minutes, and he provided a lot of information. Your thoughts?
Well, you know, a matter of transparency here. Richard and I did work together at the state's attorney's office, and that's the Richard Irvin that I know. He's always been a talker, and he still is. And I credit him for laying out his positions here today. And I thought he was pretty clear and articulate about where he stood. I mean, there wasn't any waffling, really. He was clear about where he stood and why. And, the idea of getting into those positions is different, obviously, but he was clear and he was forthright. And that's the Richard Irvin I know.
Three areas that I focused in on, it kind of are based upon the three questions I asked him. I'll talk about each one individually very quickly. One, the pandemic. I found it interesting that he said that the governor should not have any executive power as far as executive decisions beyond 30 to 90 days. Happy to see him admit the fact that the legislature, as I've said numerous times, were crickets, and they didn't do one thing for the pandemic in my mind. And so that all of it fell on the governor's hands, and it's easy to be a Monday morning quarterback about that. Although I did like the fact, as a former mayor and as a fellow mayor with him, that he would engage more the mayors and leaders throughout the state. And that would be probably a pretty difficult task without some kind of task force. But boy, as you've said many times, Pat, this is a unique 100-year deal. And sometimes the governor has to take the bull by the horns in order to get things stabilized. And so I'm not as critical, perhaps, as he was or others on JB, although I had some issues with him, and I'll leave it at that.
Let me comment on that. Sure. Obviously, we've talked about this in the past.
Yeah.
It is difficult, I think, to judge J.B. Pritzker for what he did during this pandemic. You talk about the criticism of the legislature not doing anything. Well, they still haven't done anything.
That's right.
I don't.
That's exactly right.
I haven't seen any legislation that says, "Oh, if this were to happen again, this is what happens, and this is the protocol, and the schools get closed if this happens." I don't see it. What are we waiting for?
If I may, in all the campaigns that are going on, the pandemic is kind of off to the side a little bit. I mean, it's there, but you don't hear a lot of people pounding their fist on the table on that point. You're exactly right.
As I told you before, J.B. Pritzker and Mayor Lightfoot were booed into total submission at the Southside Irish Parade. They had to actually leave the parade, get in their car, leave, because the people are so angry. They might be angry at Mayor Lightfoot for a variety of other reasons, but they're basically angry at J.B. Pritzker for his mitigations and mandates. So the question really is for the Republican Party, can you take advantage of that? Well, I'm not seeing any great ideas or legislative ideas or creativity here to suggest that J.B. Pritzker was wrong or other things should have happened. I mean, to do nothing is one way of going about it. But there's certain things that you're trying to do, and that is to save lives. So I just don't know. It's a difficult thing. If J.B. Pritzker loses this election in November, it'll be because of the pandemic. But I'm still waiting for wisdom from the other side.
On the issue of education, and he was quoted in the Daily Herald, at least as I read it the other day, of the fact that he agreed the state should be the primary supporter of education per the Illinois Constitution. And as an educator, I've always agreed upon that. And I always did the math and said if that were the case, there would be relief on property taxes locally. And that makes all kinds of sense. But he did take a different direction on that by saying he wouldn't be adding to the budget, but in fact subtracting by taking out poor performing schools. Now, one could argue that that's good or bad or whatever the case may be, but he certainly brought in this subject of competition into the education market by saying he would support vouchers, which the lines of demarcation are drawn on that pretty well. I don't know too many people are lukewarm on that subject. I have to admit, as a union president back in the day, I'd be the first to admit I was totally against vouchers. My thinking has evolved on that as a product of Catholic education. And I listened and read carefully. I should say listen. I read carefully the main decision yesterday in the Supreme Court. And, that plus a few other decisions have come down over the years. The one in Cleveland, most notably back in the day, that set the stage for all of this. I'm starting to think that perhaps we ought to look at that, only because as an economics teacher, I always said to the students, monopolies are inefficient. I believe that. I believe it strongly. And so there is some merit to the conversation, given what you can prove in drawing the graphs on the board for the economic students, that monopolies are inefficient.
Well, this is certainly one of the 2 or 3 priorities the state needs to have, and that is education. We're so, I think, focused on mass shootings in schools. We're forgetting about the fact that, at least in this state, the schools are in crisis. Teachers are retiring at great numbers. There's teacher fatigue, pandemic related or not. There's just a variety of things going on with the behavior of students that is sometimes outside of the scope of the teacher's employment and certainly outside of their ability to take charge of it. Things have to happen here. We need to make certain that teachers are replaced. Perhaps the certifications to allow other people to teach need to be eased up so that people can get into the field and help. But it's a priority and it needs to be addressed instanter.
And on the point about teachers, today's Wall Street Journal had that exact article, and I posted it on Facebook today. And it is scary about the number of teachers saying, "I've had enough. I've had simply enough." And as an educator, I'm saddened deeply by that.
Yeah, I mean, can you blame them though? I mean, that's just imagine. I mean, I'm still in the school. I'm still at St. Charles North. I'm still working with my club, and I've been there for 33 years. It's a different environment, and
Pat, the last item though before we leave here today is on the abortion issue, and I do think he made a mistake in not defining his position on that. He always said that he didn't want to comment on a hypothetical, and he's carried that even through to today, and that's fine. I respect that position, but boy, if you talk about a hot button issue in this country, that certainly is one. And for somebody running for office not to be real clear as to what his or her position is on the subject, to me, I don't want to say it's shameful, but I certainly think it's something that the campaign needs to take a look at and reevaluate moving forward. Of course, we're going to have a decision here momentarily, and then the battle lines, I suppose, if you want to call them that, will be drawn. But I thought that perhaps he didn't really address that question very clearly, and I'll leave it at that because it's not really something that's going to be solved the next day or so.
Yeah, I don't know if that should be our last issue, because crime, especially from the vantage point of a mayor of the second biggest city in Illinois, I thought that was the discussion that we really should bring up and talk about. I think he agrees that the Safety Act needs to be modified or amended or paused or whatever it is. I liked what he was saying about repealing it, because I think realistically he's right. You can't just come in here and seek its repeal if you don't have the votes. I like the fact that his deputy, what is the title, deputy governor or whatever it is, that she does have experience in Springfield. I like that. So he has his abilities and his talents in the city of Aurora, and he's bringing her along with their legislative experience. But something has to be done about crime. It's affecting everything. It's affecting whether businesses stay in the city of Chicago. It's affecting whether people leave their homes to go out and have an ice cream at night. It affects everything. Kids are scared to death to go to school. People are scared to death to leave the house. So that has to be addressed, and we need to start that yesterday.
You brought that topic along very well. I put that in your charge, so to speak, because you were a former prosecutor. And I thought from Berlin right on through today and the Safety Act and whatever, you've been very clear on that position. And I actually agree with you on just about everything that has been said with respect to not necessarily repealing. I think he was right. You just can't repeal it outright. But to put it on pause and take a look at it a little bit more carefully. You have a lot of people in the state who are very upset with it for a variety of reasons, such that it needs an extra look. And I'll leave it at that.
At St. Charles Chrysler Jeep and Ram, the brand new Grand Wagoneer and the Grand Cherokee L with the third row is now in stock. And right now, during our Jeep Celebration Month, pick a Grand Cherokee L with a third row for just $399 a month, or a Wagoneer for $719 a month, because the real deal is right here on Main Street in St. Charles. Or go to stcharlescdj.com. That's stcharlescdj.com.
Prepare to be moved. We are the Fox Valley Auto Group. Both our Volkswagen and Buick GMC dealerships are located here in St. Charles, and we're proud to serve our community. As a recipient of the BBB Torch Award for Ethics, we are dedicated to ensuring quality first, always upholding uncompromised integrity, being customer-focused, and seeking continual improvement. Stop in today or visit our website at foxvalleyautogroup.com.
The Pride Stores is a destination that offers all the convenience stores essentials and then some. Fill up your tank and get a car wash. Step inside and try some of the freshest locally sourced food in 3 of our specialty restaurants, Urban Counter, Taco Urbano, and the Pride Cafe, where we also serve craft soda and nitro coffee. Plus, many of our locations have a wide variety of beer, wine, and spirits. Our St. Charles location is home of 93 Octane Brewery, where we brew our very own craft beer. The Pride Stores is not your typical convenience store.
All right, we're back. Senator Bailey, the first question I wanted to ask is generally, our audience right now is more from the Fox Valley, including Aurora and the Naperville area and DuPage County. You're from down south a ways from here, so I wanted you to take some time and introduce yourself to our audience.
Absolutely. I've lived I know exactly where you're at because Cindy and I have actually spent the last year and a half there. We stay in an apartment complex there in North Aurora, so we're in and out of the area a lot. So I'm a farmer, about 3.5 hours south of you, born and raised and worked in Clay County. Our family farms 12,000 mini Girl Scout cookies. You definitely also have a trucking company, have an excavating business. My wife, Cindy, had a flower shop and a gift store for the first 20 years of our marriage. We've been married for 35 years. We have 4 children and 11 grandchildren. I served in church leadership, and I'm a Rotarian. I'm also a Gideon. I served for 17 years on our North Clay school board, 12 of those as board president. We're very passionate about education. So now just kind of trying to mind my own business and work and thrive and live in Southern Illinois. And with the advent of grandchildren and things getting a little tougher in Illinois and with taxes, I decided to speak up against that. And many Republicans were not standing for the platform and the values that were standing up, holding fellow members accountable for their actions and the tax increase votes. COVID hit. I sued the governor and won that lawsuit fighting against these illegal shutdowns of our churches and our schools and our businesses. And anyway, that's kind of my state senator step down. I was encouraged to take his place. I did. And through the course of all that, being able to travel the state to encourage people to keep their businesses open and stand up and protect our freedoms, the door opened to be able to serve as governor. So that's kind of a quick run through of where we come from and why we're doing what we're doing.
Well, Senator, this is Ray, and let me ask you this question as I say a leading candidate, because the polls certainly are in your favor and show some positive trends. So my next question, or my first question, is your priorities as governor. And if you could, and you kind of alluded to it here in your first opening statement, perhaps as part of the priority, could you tell our audience how you would handle, heaven forbid, another pandemic in the same context of the one we had in 2020, how would you handle that differently from Governor Pritzker?
So obviously, I believe that the government educates, government informs, government, comes up with solutions and makes those available. But never, ever, ever does government shut down Governor Pritzker and Juan. So this, to your question, what would I have done? We would have educated, we would have informed, we would have, public service announcements, kind of made sure people were aware, remind themselves to keep their hands washed and hygiene. And obviously, I have helped as a state senator. I've helped hundreds of people in my district get the vaccine when they wanted it. I've handed out thousands of masks, hundreds of gallons of hand sanitizer. We have a hand sanitizer manufacturer in my district, and thousands of gloves in the early days of this. But when this thing took the turn of the governor shutting down big and seeing that never ever once was any of the data provided that we were told existed of the so-called facts, I found out real quick there was a different agenda taking place with this, with this pandemic. So,
could you elaborate on perhaps a couple other priorities that stand out in your mind?
It was taxes is why I started running for office, getting our communities and our businesses able to thrive, getting the government out and creating a better environment. Public schools, we have got to get government out of our education. All these unfunded mandates that exist in our schools, they have got to disappear. We have got to reach the local elected school boards. And then because of the Safety Act, it has decimated law enforcement work. It seems like we're becoming here in Illinois a land of lawlessness. So that's a big reason. If we're not safe, then our schools aren't safe. If we're not safe, people aren't going to live and want to work and thrive in Illinois. So there goes our economy. So those are some of the big priorities that I will be focusing on. A lot of people don't realize, all the agency directors, day one agenda. I'm going to be firing Dr. Ayala, the state board superintendent, and replacing the Illinois State Board of Education. And along with many other, the governor places, the heads of these agencies. The governor is responsible for the trustees of our universities. So accountability and transparency will rule the day with that in my administration.
Senator Bailey, I just wanted to follow up. You talked about the Safety Act. Would you be willing as governor to try and put a pause on the effective date of the no cash bail and the other parts of that act, put a pause on that so people can be heard and people can be educated about the effect of the Safety Act?
So my goal is to repeal that. I believe the Safety Act itself, along with the no cash bail bill, must be repealed. Our country, because our courthouses downstate, for instance, and that's been a problem that we've had in Illinois. If there's been a problem in a community, or say the city of Chicago or Cook County, well, then the legislators there, they don't want to work and hold the responsible people accountable. They want to make a law for the entire state, a one size fits all mentality, and that's certainly not working, because we must have our court systems in the rest of the state. And what's going is that property taxes are going to go up, because without the bail from these criminals who are breaking place, so that's going to require this no cash bail with the beginnings. And I talk to people. A lot of people don't realize this product, and you basically won't be held accountable. You cannot make this stuff up. So no, I am in favor of a full repeal of the Safety Act, a full repeal of the cash bail bill. And I will be standing with our police. I will be building up our police. I will be defending our police. And we're going to make it wrong to break the law again.
Senator, I wanted to ask, obviously this is a Republican primary and you have several opponents. You've given us a real good outline and background as it relates to your biography. But where do you stand in terms of your running mates, and how do you differ from them? And why should a voter vote for you as opposed to someone else?
Well, one thing that I'm finding out as I travel the state, people aren't as educated as they should be. when I asked, about certain names, when I asked, I'm traveling the state with Tom DeVore right now. He got on our bus as we're traveling from county to county. As like I said, I'm in the bus right now. We're hitting all 102 counties in the next 14 days. And today, when Tom joined us, as we make our 9 to 10 stops each day, he's been asking, and we're having 50, 60 people show up at most of these events. And he asked them, does anybody here know who their attorney general is? And no one does. No one knows the name of Kwame Raoul. So the simple fact of and we've seen that. We've seen that with the Irvin campaign, with the smears that has taken place over the last 4 months, when something shows up in your mail and these egregious lies that are on it, and sometimes how easy it is that people might believe some things. We have got to start doing our research and understanding who's running for office and what they stand for. So when you do a simple background check on me, for instance, you go to BaileyForIllinois.com, my webpage, you look us up on our Facebook page, Darren Bailey for Governor, and you find really quickly the difference between me and everyone else. Number one, that I am indeed a lifelong true Republican. We certainly have 2 people in the running right now on the Republican ticket, but they're lifelong Democrats and really shouldn't even be qualified to running for the highest position in the state on the Republican ticket. But more importantly than that, you see the difference of 5 other guys. They're great guys, but you have to ask the question, where have you been the last 2 years? So where's your voice been with the taxes out of control, with our schools being overrun with woke policies, and now, with our streets being so unsafe? But even most importantly, a couple of these gentlemen are lawyers. I am a farmer. I'm not an attorney. I took the bull by the horns in July 2020, sued Governor Pritzker and won. I stood up against these mask mandates, and I have never heard of any of these other people until they decided to run for office, just about a year ago, because of what I believe the door that we kicked open and the chink that we put in Pritzker's armor. So that's the biggest difference. You look at me, my message has never changed. Aside from that, I am endorsed by all of the pro-life, pro-family groups in Illinois. I am the only one endorsed by the only gun group, Illinois State Rifle, Second Amendment group, Illinois State Rifle Association. I'm endorsed by them. I'm endorsed by ABATE, the Motorcycle Pro Freedom Group. So those are some very active state organizations that have realized that I am the only person that, number one, will stand. 3, will not waver on my values. So I think a quick research on all the candidates, I think everyone will find that to be true to me, and that I am indeed the America First candidate. Steve Cortez, former Trump ambassador, is also traveling with us this week, and we've been blessed and honored to have his endorsement because he formerly lived in Chicago and 1 year ago moved to Chattanooga, Tennessee. So he found some confidence in me that I would be able to be the only candidate that would be able to get the state back on track for his family that's obviously left in the Chicago area.
Senator, recognizing your time and just a quick final question here, it's probably, I think I'm probably pretty accurate in saying you will face a Democratic state house. Whether it's veto proof or not remains to be seen. Let's take the point you made earlier about right to life and look at that and say, if Roe v. Wade, as we anticipate, is overturned in the next week or so, and the Democratic General Assembly moves to codify Roe v. Wade in the form of a statute, how are you going to deal with that, given your very conservative position on abortion?
Well, the reality is that I've been able to develop a very good relationships and friendships with many Democrat representatives in 2019 and 2020, and over the last 2 years with Democrat senators. And they do indeed realize that I am a person of reason, that I will sit, listen, and come together and work things out. The other reality is that there were several bills introduced this last legislative session by Democrats. A late-term abortion ban was written and introduced by several Democrats. there are several Democrats are indeed against taxpayer-funded abortion. So getting that turned around so that our tax dollars don't go to pay for abortions, I believe that can happen. And I do believe that potentially, late-term bans can happen. But realistically, working with them to make sure that abortion becomes unnecessary in the state of Illinois. That indeed is an idea that originated from the South and the West sides of Chicago. So we've got a lot of work to do. But here's the deal. Having that platform as the governor and being able to go directly to all of the people of Illinois. Again, if you research my platform, you'll find out quickly that's what has elevated me to this position of running for governor and ultimately winning the Republican nominee, because I go daily on my Facebook page and I communicate with the people the hope that I believe that we still have. And I show the people, what I'm standing on and standing for. So I think when we do that all across the state, I believe that we begin to bring accountability to some of these Democrats. I do believe we're going to take the majority back in the House. I do believe that. And then as a Republican governor gets in and goes to work for all of the people, I think we take the majority back in the Senate in 2024. So, no, I have very high hopes. There will be Democrats sitting around my table, kind of like Abraham Lincoln said, keep your friends close and your enemies closer. We will be listening to everyone in the state. And I believe that's how we do something that's never been done before in the state of Illinois.
Well, in appreciation of your time, I'm going to ask you one last question, Senator, if I could. We have a variety of issues, crime, taxes. You've mentioned these, democracy, life issues, school safety. Let's just assume you find a voter on his way to the polls and you get one last chance to make a pitch. What would be your pitch in a couple of minutes to this voter as he approaches the polls?
Absolutely. I'd have 3 simple questions. What was how much did you pay for gas the last time you filled your gas tank up? Did your utility bill change when you paid it recently? And how much did you spend for groceries the last time you went shopping? And that is going to be the catalyst of what is going to root J.B. Pritzker out of office. Interest rates are skyrocketing. They're up 4 times as high. They're quadrupled under the Biden administration. Our gas prices have more than doubled. We see our grocery prices rapidly increasing. Utilities are up 30%, and it's going to get worse. Later on this summer, I'd be warning people, telling them to conserve their spending, because we're going to see brownouts across the state. We're going to see blackouts. I believe potentially we're going to see food and energy shortages. And the shame of it all is none of this, every bit of this was man-made. And then when I look at the Democrats are in control. They have the super majority in Illinois. They can do whatever they want to do. And that's exactly what they've done. They've regulated coal and oil out. So now all of a sudden we're depending on outside sources for energy. They've made this whole problem of this inflation. They've spent way more money than we've been able to bring in, and especially at the federal level, it's being printed like madness. That's where the hyperinflation is coming from. Joe Biden shut down the Keystone XL pipeline, so up on our prices, they are now tapping in to our oil, our gas, our diesel reserves, and they're not being replenished. And I think we're going to have an interesting summer coming up, and especially if we face any kind of adverse weather on the farm, we're going to see something that we've never experienced. Probably since the Great Depression with food shortages, and none of this should be possible. It's all brought to us by just woke left policies of a governor who just simply has higher aspirations and is using the people of Illinois to get there.
All right, Senator Bailey, thank you very much for your time and spending some time with our podcast. We appreciate that. We're going to be back. Ray and I will be back to talk a little bit about the interview after these words from our sponsors.
At St. Charles Chrysler Jeep and Ram, we have over 700 free-driven vehicles to choose from. That's 700 cars, trucks, vans, and SUVs to choose from. And right now, during our used car celebration month, come on in, ask for Sam, let's pick one of those 700 vehicles, and I'll give you a gas card. No purchase necessary, because the real deal is right here on Main Street in St. Charles. Or go to stcharlescdj.com. That's stcharlescdj.com.
We're back, and Ray and I wanted to analyze the interview with Senator Bailey. We're really happy that he agreed to come on, and I thought that he made his pitch, Ray. I thought that he did a good job of telling everybody why he feels he's qualified to be governor. What about it? His background makes him qualified to be governor. The idea that he stood up during the pandemic against J.B. Pritzker, he thinks that's something of note. He does have a farm and a small business, and that makes him, I think, different than some of the other candidates. I think Rabin has a business, but the idea is that he's from Southern Illinois, and Southern Illinois is different than Chicago, and I think that he sells that too. He was very clear about some of his positions. And one of the things that kind of threads through our podcast is the Safety Act. And he was very clear that he seeks its repeal. And you and I had talked about this before, the no cash bail, the Safety Act, the fact that it's basically an unfunded mandate upon these local counties to have to come up with monies to replace the bail monies that the clerks would get. And they have to pay for the process, and they have to pay for the pretrial services. And all of these things cost money, and where's that money going to come from? But I kind of understood exactly where he was as it relates to the Safety Act. I still think that maybe we need to put a pause on that, no matter who wins this election, and kind of rethink that act and kind of go to the people and talk to them about the act and what the consequences of that act would be to the average person. Ray, what did you find?
Well, first of all, to your Safety Act point, I'm in complete agreement with you. As you know, we talked about that, in fact, during the Berlin interview back a month or so ago. We're on the same page there that that act is too broad. And so on that particular issue, I'm completely in Bailey's camp in support, whether it's repealed or whether it's on pause to debate it further, like you suggest, which I think is a good idea. I think that has to happen. I think there's been a lot of outcry on that. I think he's a straight shooter. He shows that in the debates on television. And today in our conversation, which, by the way, it was only a 20-minute interview. He gave us about 5 more minutes of time than we thought he would give us. And so what he said, of course, it was shortened by the fact that we didn't have a lot of time. But he was a pretty straight shooter. And what you heard is who Darren Bailey is. Now, I put my mayor's cap on when I asked the question about the pandemic, knowing that now as the experienced one, who knows what's ahead in that particular realm. And so I asked the question of how he would handle it differently. I'm not sure I got as clear an answer as I would have liked. What I mean by that is, as a mayor, I think it's very important since cities, for the most part, do not have departments of health. They rely upon county and state guidance. For him to suggest that, well, we'll have some public service announcements, and I know he's against mandates, so we're not going to have any of that. Business is as usual. Left me a little empty because I've gone through that. I know what I had to deal with Pritzker's executive orders. Some things he did, I frankly didn't like, but for the most part, we got through that. St. Charles in particular got through that pandemic pretty well, and I was happy. So again, perhaps not enough clarity on that, Pat.
Yeah, this is a once a century type disaster that struck the country, and to criticize Pritzker for what he did, it's a difficult thing to do. And then when you ask the candidates, okay, what would you do differently? It's easy to talk about it after the fact, and this pandemic isn't over, but what would you have done differently? People who don't like government and seek to have smaller government, really during a pandemic is really when you need the government to step up, because otherwise you just have chaos. So are people upset that Governor Pritzker didn't want them to go to a restaurant or otherwise close schools? Yes, they are. But I just don't know what the counter solution would have been to this problem. People were dying. We've had 1 million or so people die here. I just don't know what the expectation is, and I'm scared for the next problem that arises, whether it's in Illinois or some volcano somewhere, and people just aren't listening to the government. It's going to be pure madness. So I think we need to prepare for the next pandemic. We certainly need to have some legislation that guides everybody as to who has the authority, what needs to be done, what the counties do, what the cities do, what the state does, where the money comes from, what we do with the schools. All of that should be codified somehow so that the next governor who may have this problem has some guidance as to what we need to do. That's well said. I didn't really necessarily like the idea that all of the gas prices, the utility prices, and the grocery prices are attributed to the Democrats, Joe Biden or Pritzker, or so, and then to say that it's the Keystone Pipeline. That Keystone Pipeline was involved in litigation for 12 years, I think. The landowners there, the Native Americans, I mean, it was just a mess. And then the owners couldn't demonstrate safety precautions. And yes, Biden pulled the permit, but to say that would have solved the energy crisis that we now save, or the gas prices, is absurd. It wasn't even close to production. So what are we talking about here?
I appreciate the fact that he's talking about inflation. And when you asked a question about a voter going into the booth, what would he talk about? And he brings out utilities, he brings out gas. Well, these are national issues, number one. Certainly the state can do some things with respect to taxes on utilities or on gas. But the fact of the matter is it's in the hands of and I'll say this the way it is, a do-nothing Congress, both Democrats and Republicans, who are not trying to find any kind of bipartisanship in solving it. Meanwhile, the Fed comes in now, bumps up the rate 0.75%. The market reacts, and he is saying in one of his closing arguments there that a recession's is coming. Well, I guess so. I guess so. Right. If, in fact, these policies are not dealt with in a joint effort by Democrats and Republicans. I got to ask you a question, though. We're going to get running out of time here, and I want to get to this issue, and I think our audience wants to hear it. I brought up the potential, it's going to come in next week, overturning of Roe v. Wade, and the fact that we have a Democratic General Assembly, and the fact that there would probably be actions to do some sort of codification of Roe v. Wade via a statute. What was your thought on his response to that?
Well, I think what he said was he wants to eliminate the need for abortion. So I think that by saying that, he's talking about the idea that people are given options. There's adoption, there's the concept of educating on the choice matter, that kind of thing. I think that Illinois, I think they already have legislation in place under the idea that if Roe is reversed, this legislation will be passed instanter. It's a difficult thing to talk about. I mean, I don't know anybody who's pro-abortion. This is about choice. And Illinois, I think, because of its blueness, will in fact work some kind of legislation that will allow women to exercise their choice here. The question, I guess, is how will the Republicans be able to work compromises? Will some education be involved? Will there be some counseling involved? That kind of thing, and how that's going to work and everything else. So
well, once the primaries are over, Pat, it seems to me all candidates, Democrat and Republican, need to be very, very clear about all of these issues. This one in particular, it's a red hot, this topic and others, as we move forward to the general election in November. I'm glad we've had a chance, at least through one candidate here, at least for the moment, prior to the primary, to have a conversation. And I'm happy he said he'd be happy to come back later on if he were to be the candidate for governor. So we'll probably have some more conversation as the summer progresses on the gubernatorial election.
Yeah,
so,
I was surprised that he's been living in North Aurora. I had no idea.
I did not know that either.
Beautiful downtown North Aurora.
That's right. And my guy, who no longer is there, but I worked with for a long time, Dale Berman, who's now on the county board, kept that place in good order, at least during my 8 years as mayor of St. Charles.
I met him at the launch. He's a wonderful guy.
He is. With that, I think it's time to say so long to everyone. And so Pat and I will simply say we're just a couple of guys who like to talk everything, and now we're including elections and politics into all of that. But we'll bid you farewell. And as always, remember, be safe. So long, everybody.